You know exactly what I'm talking about. You walk out to your driveway in the morning, coffee in hand, you look at your car, and the paint is fine, the wheels are clean, but that plastic trim running along your fenders, around your windows, framing your bumpers, it looks like someone dragged your vehicle through a decade of neglect overnight. That chalky, sun-bleached gray disaster sitting right where crisp black should be. It makes a 5-year-old car look like it just got pulled out of a barn auction. And you know what stings the most? You actually tried to fix it. You went to the auto parts store, you stood in that aisle for 10 minutes reading labels that all said the same thing. Restores black trim, long-lasting black, UV protection formula, and you grabbed a bottle, you paid $25 for what felt like a legitimate solution. You went home, you scrubbed it in with the little applicator pad they gave you, and it looked incredible for about a day, maybe two if you were lucky and it didn't rain, and then it rained. And now you've got long, greasy, black streaks running down the side of your paint like your car is crying mascara, and the trim underneath those streaks, still gray, still oxidized, still making your car look like a beater. And you're standing there with a ruined paint surface, an empty wallet, and the exact same problem you started with. That cycle right there is not an accident. That is a business model. And today, everything changes because the actual solution to permanently gray, UV-destroyed plastic trim is not in any bottle on any shelf in any auto parts store. It is sitting in a school kid's pencil case, and it costs $2. I am going to show you exactly what it is, exactly why it works at a molecular level, and exactly why the companies selling you those gel bottles have been deliberately hiding this from you for years. Stay with me, because this is the most important piece of car care information you will learn this year, and it is going to save you serious money starting today. What I am about to hand you is not a tip. It is not a hack. It is a complete dismantling of an industry that profits from your ignorance, and the weapon that destroys their entire business model is something so simple, so cheap, and so effective that once you use it, you will never look at a bottle of Trim Restorer again without feeling genuinely angry. The secret is a jumbo pink eraser, a standard, large, soft pink eraser, the kind you can find at any dollar store, any school supply section, any pharmacy, in a pack of 2 or 3 for literally $2. And before you roll your eyes and keep scrolling, I need you to understand something critical right now. This eraser does not work by covering the gray. It does not coat, it does not paint, it does not add a layer of anything on top of your plastic. It works by physically removing the gray at a particle level, pulling the oxidized dead plastic cells out of the surface grain like a microscopic vacuum and leaving behind only the healthy, factory dark plastic that was underneath the whole time. That is not marketing language. That is polymer friction science, and I am going to walk you through exactly how it works in about 60 seconds. But first, I need to make sure you are subscribed to this channel, because what you are watching right now is part of a movement. We call it Truth in Detailing. No sponsorships from chemical companies. No affiliate links to overpriced products. No softened corporate-friendly language that dances around the fact that this industry has been selling you liquid makeup for your car since the 1980s. These companies are not selling you a solution. They are selling you a dependency. They need your trim to stay porous, to stay oxidized, to stay gray enough that you feel the compulsion to reapply their product every 2 weeks. The moment you actually fix the problem permanently, you stop buying. And a customer who stops buying is their worst nightmare. Hit that subscribe button right now, not for me, for your wallet. Because every video on this channel is another product you will never have to buy again. Now, let's get into the science, because this is where it gets genuinely fascinating and where you will understand why no liquid product can ever do what an eraser does. Your plastic trim, whether it is the textured black panels on your fenders, the rubber-edged window surrounds, or the bumper end caps, is not a smooth surface. If you looked at it under a microscope, it would look almost like a sponge. It is filled with thousands of tiny pores and channels that give it that factory matte texture. That texture is intentional. It is engineered to scatter light, to look rich and deep, and to hide minor surface scuffs. When your car is new, those pores are filled with healthy, pigmented, flexible polymer molecules that absorb light and look black. Then UV radiation goes to work. Ultraviolet light is essentially a molecular assassin. Over time, it breaks the chemical bonds that keep the surface polymer molecules intact. Those molecules die, they oxidize, they bleach out and turn white. And because they are still sitting inside those tiny pores in your trim, they create a visible layer of chalky, light scattering, dead plastic dust right on the surface of your panels. That is what gray trim actually is. It is not faded color, it is a graveyard of dead polymer cells sitting in the grain of your plastic. Now here is where the industry scam enters the picture. When you apply a liquid trim restorer, what it does is simple. It wets that dead white dust. It fills the pores with a dark oil or silicone, which optically darkens the dead material and makes the panel look black again, for a while. But the dead particles are still there. The oxidation is still there. Nothing has been removed, nothing has been restored. You have just applied a cosmetic filter over the problem. And the moment water, friction, or UV light displaces that liquid coating, which it always does, the dead white particles are visible again and your trim looks gray. The entire industry, every brand, every formula, every ceramic-infused, nano-bonded, UV-resistant label you have ever read is built on this exact same mechanism. They are wetting the problem and charging you for the privilege. An eraser does something fundamentally different. A soft pink eraser is made from a vulcanized rubber or vinyl polymer compound. The surface of a quality eraser has a very specific level of friction and a slight electrostatic charge when it is in contact with other polymers. When you rub an eraser across your plastic trim, two things happen simultaneously. First, the physical friction of the eraser moving against the grain of the plastic dislodges the loosely bonded dead polymer particles from inside those tiny surface pores. Second, the slight static charge created by polymer on polymer friction attracts those freed particles to the eraser surface, pulling them away from the trim and trapping them inside the rubber compound of the eraser itself. You can literally see this happen. As you work the eraser across a section of gray trim, the eraser picks up a dark gray residue, and the trim underneath it turns black. That dark residue is not eraser material. It is the oxidized dead plastic that was sitting in your trim's grain. You are not covering the gray. You are vacuuming it out. And what you are left with is the actual, living, healthy plastic surface that was hidden underneath the oxidation layer the entire time. This is not a cosmetic fix. This is genuine restoration. And it takes about 60 seconds per panel. Now, let me spend a moment on the product you have probably already bought or are considering buying because you deserve to know exactly what you paid for. Those $15 to $25 trim restorer gels, the ones marketed as permanent or long-lasting, the premium tier of the trim restorer world, many of them contain dye compounds mixed into their silicone or polymer base. The idea is that instead of just optically darkening the oxidation, the dye will bond to the plastic surface and create a more lasting color effect. And in the short term, this does work better than basic silicone products. The color lasts longer, but here is the brutal reality of dye-based trim restorers that no company will ever tell you on the label. Plastic trim expands and contracts with temperature. Every hot day, every cold night, the plastic moves. And a dye layer that is bonded to the surface of a polymer that is constantly flexing and shifting will eventually crack and peel. Not all at once. It does it in patches. First, you see a slight chalky texture coming back in one corner. Then a section in the middle starts to look lighter than the rest. Then over the course of a few months, you end up with trim that looks like it has a skin condition, with dark patches, light patches, and flaking streaks that no amount of reapplication can smooth out because the surface itself is now compromised. The dye has bonded with the dead oxidation layer, not with the healthy plastic underneath, and as that oxidation layer continues to degrade, the dye goes with it. At that point, you are looking at a plastic trim panel that cannot be restored by any surface product because its outer layer is a patchwork of dye residue and damaged polymer. The only fix at that stage is replacement. And depending on the vehicle, a single fender trim panel or window surround can cost anywhere from $80 to $300 to replace. So that permanent $25 solution has a very real risk of costing you a $400 parts bill down the line. The $2 eraser has no dyes, no silicones, no compounds that bond to your plastic and degrade. It just removes what does not belong there and leaves what does. There is no degradation risk. There is no peeling risk. There is no skin disease outcome. You are not applying anything. You are only taking something away. And that distinction is the entire difference between a real solution and an expensive gamble. Let me walk you through the exact protocol so you can do this correctly and safely the first time. The preparation step is non-negotiable. Before you touch your trim with an eraser, you need to wash the panel with soap and water. Use a mild car wash soap or even a drop of dish soap diluted in water and a soft brush. The goal here is to remove any loose surface contamination, any road grime, any previous product residue, and any wax that may have migrated onto the trim from adjacent paint panels. This is important because if you skip the wash step, you will be dragging abrasive particles like sand grains and road debris across your plastic under the pressure of the eraser, and that will cause surface scratches. Wash the trim thoroughly, rinse it completely, and then dry it with a clean microfiber towel. The trim must be completely dry before you begin erasing. Moisture in the pores will interfere with the static friction mechanism that makes this technique work, and it will also cause the eraser to smear rather than vacuum the oxidation out. Once the trim is clean and dry, take your jumbo pink eraser and work in small sections about 4 inches by 4 inches at a time. Use firm, overlapping strokes in one consistent direction, following the grain of the textured plastic if you can see a directional grain pattern. Apply steady, even pressure. You are not scrubbing aggressively. You are making consistent, controlled contact. After every 4 or 5 strokes, look at the surface of the eraser. You will see it building up a dark gray or blackish residue. This is the oxidation you are removing. You can either wipe the eraser face on a clean towel to clear the loaded residue, or simply rotate the eraser to a fresh surface before continuing. As you work across a section, you will see the trim darkening and the factory texture re-emerging with every pass. Continue working in sections until the entire panel is restored. Now I need to stop and give you the single most important warning in this entire video, and I am asking you to pay full attention because ignoring this will cause permanent, irreversible damage to your trim. You must only use a soft pink eraser or a white vinyl eraser. You are looking for products labeled as soft or vinyl or latex-free erasers. The cheap pink rectangular erasers you find in school supply packs are exactly right. White block erasers are also correct. What you absolutely cannot use is a sand eraser, a gritty eraser, an ink eraser, or any dual-sided eraser with a rough, darker colored section. These products look like erasers, but they contain actual abrasive particles, sometimes fine glass particles or aluminum oxide, embedded in the rubber compound. These particles are designed to physically sand away paper fibers when removing ink, and they will do the exact same thing to your plastic trim. If you use a sand eraser or an abrasive ink eraser on your plastic panels, it will physically shave off the microscopic texture from the surface of your trim. That textured, matte surface is not a coating. It is molded directly into the plastic at the factory. Once it is gone permanently. What you are left with are smooth, glossy, bald patches on your trim that reflect sunlight directly into your eyes and those around you. They look like someone held a polishing machine against your plastic. The trim will look worse than gray. It will look destroyed. And unlike oxidation, which can be addressed, a shaved smooth plastic surface cannot be retextured by any product or technique available to a home detailer. Replacement is the only option. So, when you are standing in that school supply aisle holding a pink eraser, read the label: soft pink, white vinyl, no sand, no grit, no ink eraser. Get the right tool, and the results will genuinely shock you. Let me give you the final picture, because I want this to live in your head every time you drive past that auto parts store aisle. On one side of this comparison, you have a $25 gel in a bottle with a compelling label. You apply it, and your trim looks black. Then it rains and black streaks run down your paint, and you have to spend an afternoon with a clay bar cleaning greasy silicone off your clear coat. 3 weeks later, the trim is gray again. You go back to the store. You spend another $25. This repeats twice a month. Over a single year, you have spent over $600 and your trim has never actually been restored. It has only been temporarily hidden and repeatedly re-revealed. And if you chose a dye-based product, you may be looking at trim replacement costs by year 2. On the other side, you have a $2 jumbo pink eraser from the school supply section. You spend 60 seconds per panel. The oxidation is physically removed. The healthy factory plastic is revealed. The result does not wash off in the rain because you did not apply anything. There is nothing to wash off. The black you are seeing is the actual color of your actual trim, unmasked and exposed for the first time in years. And the more you protect that trim from UV going forward with a simple non-silicone trim dressing applied sparingly once every few months, the longer it stays looking exactly like this. $2, 60 seconds, permanent results, $600 a year, recurring labor, greasy paint, and a problem that never actually goes away. The choice is not even a choice. It is obvious. If you know someone right now, a family member, a friend, a neighbor, anyone whose car looks 10 years older than it should because the trim has gone gray, share this video with them today, not tomorrow. Today, because every day they spend not knowing this, there is a chance they walk into that auto parts store and hand over another $25 to an industry that is counting on them staying uninformed. You have the truth now. Pass it on. And while you're here, go back and watch the video we did on the dishwasher rinse aid secret for glass rain repellency, because that is another $20 product you are never buying again after you watch it. The Truth in Detailing movement is built one informed viewer at a time, and you are now part